So, today we're going to talk about patience. Being patient and maybe also not being patient. Yeah, and I'm going to see you after the intro, as always. And with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the I'm Standing Here SDWT Podcast, or Self-Development with Tactics Podcast. And again, as I said before, I'm just standing today as well, even though I don't really know if this is just like kind of the best idea or something, because my foot is a little bit hurting and I don't actually know why. It might be because of the sports that I did like the last week or some stuff and shit. But yeah, anyway, this is not what the episode is all about, because the episode is all about patience. Patience and not being patient. And as you can see on the left side, I'm having a script there, because today I thought, and I've been thinking about just doing videos in a different way, I thought, why not having a script? Why not having something that I read and I'm then also going to provide it to you so that you can just read it as well and have it as some sort of a summary, as I've also been doing it beforehand as well. And this, by the way, is not scripted, what I'm saying at this point in time, and you just clearly see what I'm going to see or what I'm going to talk about then. But this is not scripted, because I didn't really want it to have meta and just script about scripting and just whatnot. I thought it is maybe a good idea, and I'm going to see whether it is a good idea. It somehow already is, because I had to think about whatever I'm going to talk about today, which is always a good thing, because it makes things way easier. So if you're just doing something like a YouTube channel, a podcast, or something like that as well, scripting it and just thinking about how you're going to do it makes sense. Even though I think in the next episode I'm going to do it completely different. I'm not going to do that then, but just do it somehow, because of course there is some preparation, which might be a reason for somebody to just not do that, because some people can react to things and some people can just do this and that, and then they're just really fine with that. So patience, and I hope that you're not patient at this point of time. So what does patience or being patient actually mean? The capacity to accept or tolerate delay, problems or suffering without becoming annoyed or anxious. You find, and this is not the example, you can find bargains if you have the patience to sift, I don't know what sift means, I haven't looked that up, through the rubbish. It somehow has also something to do with health. So the whole painting or the whole thing, what I've been referring to before, like being a patient and whatnot, is not too bad, actually, too bad of a joke. It's been a joke. It's not been that funny probably, but it's actually been a joke. Yeah. But why am I talking about patient? Why is it important to me, and why should it also, or maybe is also important to you? The whole origin. The whole origin is actually GaryVee, or Gary Vaynerchuk. You might know him as well. At this point in time, he's definitely pretty popular, and he's definitely just pretty known among the folks of, I don't know, I would say actually from 9 to 50 or something. People actually know him, especially just because also he's doing a lot of stuff, whether it is on TikTok, whether it is his podcast, like for every age group there is something. And I just totally believe that this is also his tactic. So yeah, but he's most often talking about it in the context of building something, whether it is, so I'm just standing in or having it stand here, business or an audience or family and whatnot. And yes, building something indeed takes a lot of time, because I've also seen that. I've also noticed that. Not unfortunately, even though it just is on my tongue, which is not scripted, by the way, as you can see as well. But I've seen it and I've recognized it and I've also felt it, because in the past 1.5 years, which is actually quite a lot of time for what I've been able to do in this 1.5 years, I've been uploading 770 podcast episodes, let alone the podcast episodes, because not every video is also translated into the podcast, so there might also be some videos that are just not a podcast basically. And these are 770 times 20, because I thought, well, some videos are longer and some videos are shorter, but I think it's always quite around those 20 minutes. It would actually be quite of an interesting thing to see whether this is the case, since I'm learning in maths about it, or have to do for my A levels that I'm hopefully somehow gonna have, or maybe even not. I wouldn't also give a fuck about that. But it turns out to be 15,400 minutes, 56 hours and 10.10 days actually. But if you just think about it right now, 10.10 days straight of recording and talking about something isn't that much for 1.5 years. So I might have just miscalculated something or stuff, but it's actually not that much. And also coming back to GaryVee a little tiny bit, GaryVee is an entrepreneur from Belarus, which, as I've then found out, is not a part of Russia at this point in time, but it has been. At this point in time, it is actually a state or a country in Europe or Eastern Europe, and it is completely just an own thing. It is not a part of Russia. It is on the border to Russia and to the Ukraine, as far as I can tell. There might be some map or something, probably there is. Then I've Googled, what other people say, what makes patience important and what makes patience something that's necessary to talk about and necessary to think about and necessary to also maybe learn about. And I found a link here. Patience makes us healthier. Anger and stress are two things that are enough to ruin a person's health. Patience is an important tool in overcoming frustration. Patience allows us to suspend judgment long enough to make informed decisions and thus paving the path to happy and peaceful life. I have decided to not take this website as a source. I've taken some other website that's a tiny bit better, but the other one was not that good. I am actually also kind of a person that goes for the design. Like if a site just looks shitty, then I'm not gonna be on it for long because maybe this is DNA or stuff. But the first thing that I thought on the other website that I've now gonna show you is what the fuck. What the fuck, because yes, it is a dog, but what the fuck is he doing? What I'm referring to is this. Why? Why is he doing that? Why is this poor little dog having a mini carrot on his fucking nose? I don't even know if dogs like carrots. I mean, I assume actually, but I don't know. I assume, but I really, really, really don't know. But I don't know. It is a really funny picture and it doesn't make any fucking sense. But what they say is having patience means being able to wait calmly in the face of frustration or adversity. So anywhere there is frustration or adversity, i.e. nearly everywhere, we have the opportunity to practice it. Yes, I think it just also comes up to what you think about and how your perspective and how you're viewing things. Because of course, if you want to see something bad, you're probably also going to be able to see something bad, which is a really fucked up thing, What you're trying to see and what you're willing to see and what you're searching for is probably also what you're getting. And this is something and I'm referring to it just all the time when I'm talking about it, but I'm also going to do it right now. This is something that definitely Tony Robbins is also talking about because he's often making an experiment. Well, I don't want to say always because I don't know. I generally don't know. But he makes people focus on a color. He says okay, focus on the color red. And after 10 minutes, he says, now just open your eyes again or something. I think there was some sequence there as well. I don't know. And then he said and now show me something that's green. And everyone was like, there's nothing that's green because I've only been looking at something that's red. And this is the point, because if I just only have a look at something that's red, I'm only going to see red things. I'm only going to focus on red things. And it's the exact same thing if you focus on bad shit. And also on good shit. If you only focus on good shit, you're probably only gonna get good shit. Hopefully, quite hopefully. But yeah. So the first point they brought up is patient people enjoy better mental health. And I first of all thought why? But then I thought, well, yeah. And I've also seen that they just talk about a study. So it's a study. You can't say a lot against the study. A 2007 study by Fuller Theological Seminary Professor Sarah A. Schnitker, I don't know, and UC Davis Psychology Professor Robert Emmons, patient people tend to experience less depression and negative emotions, perhaps because they can cope better with upsetting and stressful situations. And what I had to think about then was, maybe they just think it is not something bad and they're just not viewing as something tough, or they're not viewing their situation, what they're experiencing, as something tough. Because if you think about it, and it's now going to be a little bit complicated to explain because, thoughts, they come and go, nothing. No reference there. I'm not going to make any reference there. But if you're patient and you know that something is tough and you know that something is, let's say you know that something is supposed to be tough and something is supposed to frustrate you, but it is just not frustrating you because you're patient, then it is not frustrating. Then you're not seeing these things. They're not there. And it actually is connected to something else that they then brought up in the article a little bit down below, which we're also going to cover. We're also going to cover that because I'm undercover. Evidence of this is found in a 2008 study that put participants into groups of 4 and asked them to contribute money to a common pot, which would be doubled and redistributed. The game gave players a financial incentive to be stingy, yet patient people contributed more to the pot than other players did. I don't really know, since it is about money. Some people are going to be like, I am patient, but I'm not going to put my money into just something that some people say that I can, and they're going to double it and whatnot. The problem there is as well that I don't have the full context. So even though they might have said like, it's not a good idea to just put your money into this, then of course it has also something to do with taking a risk. If you're just patient, but you can't take any risks, then you're also not going to do that. So therefore you're not patient, as they say. I'm of course nitpicking, and of course I'm also just picking one part of the whole fucking article there. But yeah, anyway, still. The third point, patience helps us achieve our goals. Not everything is going to work right ahead. Sometimes we need luck, and sometimes just doing something is not enough. Which reminded me of people begging for something because they did something. Covering a need and getting people to need it, and actually doing something that the people like to have is the thing you should be going for, and not just making something and then being like, oh, I made this and that. Please just have a look at this. Please just have a look at this video. Please do this. Please do that. Just because you did something doesn't mean that people are also gonna like whatever you're doing. I don't want to say that there's a common thing or common theme or common misconception or something like that, but I'm seeing it over and over again, especially I would say on TikTok, people being like, okay, I've made this cool video and this and that, and please have a look at it, because it's only having this and that amount of views, and I've put so much work into it. I've actually yesterday seen something like that, and the video wasn't actually that bad, as I've seen just in the TikTok itself. But again, just because you did something doesn't really mean that people are also gonna come. And also just because you've put a lot of work into it and a lot of just time and energy and whatnot into it, doesn't mean that people are gonna come. Chances are, of course, there that people are gonna come, whether you've put a lot of work into it or not. It really doesn't matter too much. But yeah, so how to be patient. And I've been talking about it. I really have. Quite often actually, and I've seen this one, Awaken the Greatness Within. It's a website. Please check out the description, or that description actually, because there's a lot of free things that you can get. First of all, there is the link to the podcast, because this is actually a podcast and a YouTube quote-unquote show. On the other hand, you're also going to get 3 things, as I said. For example, the free PDFs of the things that I've highlighted in this episode or in other episodes. If I've highlighted something, then it is going to be in a tiny PDF. You can download it and print it and share it and do whatever with it. And there is everything in this that I've gone through in this episode, which is pretty amazing, because some people like to listen, therefore we're having a podcast. Some people like to watch, therefore we're having the YouTube videos. And some other people like to read things. And this is why there's also the free PDF. And there's as well some music, so if you do want to have some background music in this video, then please also check out the 3rd link, or it's actually I think the 4th link, but 3rd section, something like that. And there's also just different tracks to choose from, and they're all I think an hour long, so you should be fine. Everything should be fine, should be good to go. And yeah, enjoy the episode, and I'm gonna see you. And it kind of is, maybe, I don't really know, but it kind of reminds me on Awaken the Giant Within, which is a book by Tony Robbins. I don't know. I just also think about, what does the copyright law say about that? Is this even a little bit too much, so that Tony could be like, well, I'm gonna fuck you. But something else that I've just skipped that was reframing the situation. And this is what I've been referring to in the first, quote unquote, first part of the whole video, which is, if you can reframe the situation, then whatever you're seeing or whatever is tough, you're not seeing it as something tough because you're reframing it. So you're not seeing it as you should see it quite Quite. So therefore, is it still it? If even though you know it is this, but you're not seeing it and you don't think it is this and you don't feel like it is this and that? This is actually a really philosophical question. We could be kind of discussing that. Quite. We could. I don't say we should. We could. And I'm actually having some quotes there from the Awaken the Giant Within, or Greatness, within website. There is actually some good ones. There's also some I don't know. Well, yeah, I'm going to read them and I'm going to see. I haven't actually read them. I've just copied them. So the first one is, patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. Anonymous. And yes, I would actually also say so. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. And this is totally the fucking case, and it is by Aristotle. And I think this is just enough to say, yeah, it makes sense. If he said it, then most often it just is going to make sense quite, as I have seen and experienced and thought and whatnot. But just coming back to it and talking about it a little bit, of course, if you're patient in terms of putting a lot of money into, let's say, a certain stock or in the S&P 500, because you know that if you put a lot of money into this and you just take advantage of the whole compound interest thing, then in the end you're going to have quite some money. Probably, maybe, you don't know, but you have to be patient anyway, because it's probably going to take you 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, something like that. The third one, trust the process. Your time is coming. Just do the work and the result will handle themselves. From Tony Gaskins. This is actually a pretty amazing one. The point is actually being able to trust the process and actually being able to really think about the process and being able to like the process. If you don't like the process, then everything is fucked. Which leads to the question of today, which is, do you like the job that you're having? Because this is quite the exact same thing. If you don't like the job that you're having, how the fuck would you be able to get to a good point? How the fuck could you be able to get to a great position in the company, a great whatever? If you don't like the process, then it's already just much more difficult. If you love what you're doing, if you just really like what you're doing, besides the whole fact that if you just do something for 8 hours a day that you absolutely hate, no, not good, really not good, because not good. Because it's just not good, because it's so much time, and time, as a lot of people say, I just genuinely don't like that always. In this context, I like it, but time is a really valuable source or valuable thing, and we should really just take it as not something that's granted, but we should just have an eye on it and use it as just something that's also precious, I'd say, maybe. God has perfect timing, never early, never late. It takes a little patience and it takes a lot of faith, but it is worth the wait. From Anonymous. Stay patient and trust the journey. Anonymous, have patience. All things are difficult before they became easy. From Zadi. I don't know who Zadi is, but yeah. Be patient. Everything is coming together. Again, from Anonymous. He's actually writing a lot of quotes there. 2 things define you. Your patience was a joke, by the way. 2 things define you. Your patience when you're having nothing, and your attitude when you are having everything. A man who masters patience masters everything else anonymously. Yes. Patience is also a form of action. Yeah, it is. You cannot not communicate. Václavic, hello, how are you? Patience is the calm accept. By the way, Václavic, pretty cool dude, also from Austria. And he unfortunately died in 2007, as I've found out yesterday, I guess. So, yeah, thank you, I guess, to Václavic, if he's around somehow. Thank you for the good things and for figuring out a lot. Our patience will achieve more than our force. From Edmund Burke, I guess. It just really sounds Germanish. I've actually skipped one from David G. Allen. Patience is the calm acceptance that things can happen in a different order than the one you have in your mind. Patience is a conquering virtue. And the last one is, patience is when you're supposed to get mad, but you choose to understand. I really like this one, but it is also from Anonymous, which is a really fucked up thing. But I really, really, really like this one. Patience is when you're supposed to get mad, but you choose to understand. It really sounds like just Tupac-ish, to be honest. And then I've also just had to think about the marshmallow experiment. The marshmallow experiment is an experiment that, as my little source there says, is from the Stanford University, or was an experiment by the Stanford University. And I'm just going to read it because I'm also having it there. Can I zoom a little tiny bit, please? Well, yeah. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment was a study on delayed gratification in 1972, led by psychologist Walter Mischel, a professor at Stanford University. In this study, a child was offered a choice between one small but immediate reward or two small rewards if they waited for a period of time. During this time, the researchers left the room for about 15 minutes and then returned. The reward was either a marshmallow or pretzel stick, depending on the child's preference. In follow-up studies, the researchers found that children who were able to wait longer for the preferred rewards tended to have better life outcomes as measured by SAT scores, like better life. You know, if you're having a good SAT, you're gonna have a good life. I don't really believe in it, but I'm not part of the system, so I can't tell. Educational attainment, body mass index, and other life measures. A replication attempt with a more diverse sample population over 10 times larger than the original study showed only half the effect of the original study. The replication suggested that economic background rather than willpower explained the other half. Yes, and there was also, I think, some sort of a back study or another study that was based on that, which just then showed that it doesn't really matter quite, as far as I remember, which is something that Seth Godin was also talking about on one of his podcast episodes. But yeah, this is actually quite the end, so I really have to thank you for just taking the time and being part of this and stuff. And yeah, thank you. I wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself and you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy and basically means just being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person. And yeah, with that being said, 3 questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? And these 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea. But hopefully, your purpose. But yeah, I'm gonna see you. Bye-bye. And really thank you from the bottom of my heart. It just really means a lot. It's a lot of time, as you have seen up there. A lot of time that I put into this. So I'm gonna see you. Hopefully.